It's 10:35.
Good evening. My name's John Peel. Tonight I'd like to play some records, talk a bit about music, but most of all I want to be totally miserable. Later on we'll be talking about nuclear destruction and cancer with Leonard Cohen. And if that doesn't depress you, then listen to this, the most doom-laden single I could find. It's on the Gloom and Misery label, and it's Feeling Groovy by Clement Freud, and I think he's joined in the chorus by Jackie Charlton.
Hello, Olympus. What you doing? I've come to watch your flowers grow. Ain't you got no rhymes for me? Tweet and doodin', feeling groovy. Feeling groovy.
We present Injury Time, starring Robert Bathurst, Martin Bergman, Rory McGrath, Jimmy Mulville, and Emma Thompson. First, news of programmes you can hear later in the week on BBC Radio. On Tuesday on Radio 2, Barry Took takes a walk down memory lane and gets mugged by skinheads.
On Monday, that marvellous panel game returns with Jimmy Edwards, Bob Todd, Reginald Bosanquet and Peter Woods. That's Does the Team Drink?
On Thursday, Richard Stilgo looks back over the events of his week. That's Diary of a Nobody.
And on Friday, in The Big Time, Esther Ranson takes Little and Large and turns them into a top comedy act.
On the same night, there's another wacky episode of the hit comedy series Are You Being Served? This week, Mrs. Slocum sits by the fire with her cat and singes her pussy. Captain Peacock buys some breakfast cereal and gets his oats. And Mr. Humphreys has it off with a sailor. But now...
Have a good day at the bank, Robert, darling.
She said accusingly.
Yes, Jenny, darling, very hectic.
He lied, knowing full well he'd been sacked from the bank 17 years ago.
I went to the bank today, Robert, darling.
He gulped.
And I found out today that you were sacked from the bank 17 years ago.
On Robert's face there appeared a look of dismay, a look of disbelief, and a tiny piece of egg yolk on the corner of his mouth, which Jenny found intensely irritating.
You look like a little boy that's been caught scrumping.
She said inanely.
Caught what?
He asked.
Scrumping.
She replied.
Oh, scrumping.
He nodded, though deep down he knew he still had no idea what scrumping meant.
17 years. What have you been doing?
I've been lying to you.
He lied. But somewhere in the back of his mind a memory flickered. Didn't scrumping mean raiding orchards?
You can tell me, Robert. I've always put up with your peculiar little habits.
I appreciate that.
Said Robert, putting on a tutu and doing Tchaikovsky's Dance of the Dying Swan.
When I was 20, I met this girl.
He said.
And then?
She said.
We talked.
He said.
And then?
She said.
She said.
He said.
She said?
She said.
She said, can you tell me the way to Cockfosters? And then
He paused. He stopped pausing.
married her. I've been spending my days with her and my evenings with you, but it's all over now between Belinda and I, and oh my God, I want you back so much.
He said, finishing the longest sentence in the conversation so far.
Oh, my God, Robert, I do love you.
She iterated.
And I you.
He reiterated.
But if this marriage is going to work, to start afresh on a basis of mutual love and respect, there's one thing I must know. Who the hell is this sitting in our living room?
He said, pointing at me, and I pissed off quick.
Lead singer of the Bootles and founder of Wangs. Paul, it's really great to have you on the show tonight. I understand your new album is a load of rubbish.
Yeah, it is actually. Well, I think that's more or less right, you know. Yeah. I mean, I think we felt that our last 2 or 3 albums were, well, not been particularly good. So we thought we'd go the whole way this time and make the new album, you know, not at all good, you know. Because I think it's important in this business, you know, that you've got to keep moving or you get stale. You know.
Sure. Well, there have been some personnel changes in your band, Paul. Would you like to tell us about them a bit?
Yeah, well, you know, we thought we'd bring in a couple of our kids, you know, on the rattle and the Farley's Rusk. And also we're getting the dog to take over on the horn section, starting her off on the trombone, nothing too complicated.
And how does that sound?
Well, the critics will probably say it sounds pretty awful, and what's he got a dog in his band for when it's got no real musical ability?
Sure, yeah.
But it's a bit of fun, and it's a chance for the dog to be a millionaire. Because, she does tend to feel a bit left out otherwise, the dog.
Sure.
Yeah.
And Paul, what are your plans now?
Well, I think it may be, an album of me and Glenda sitting at home watching Kojak, I think.
Well, might that not be a bit dull?
Oh,
Paul?
yeah, but I know that some of the heavier bands, like, the Nolan Sisters, might say it was on the extremely tame side, but these days, a lot of people, they really get off on being bored.
Yeah.
No?
Well, Paul, I just have to ask you this, although I know you must get sick and tired of the question.
Sure, yeah.
Is there any chance of your old band getting back together again? I mean, you were, after all, the greatest taxpayer since Schubert.
Right. Yeah, well, I think, what's the point? I mean, it's all very well saying we were incredibly good once and we did amazing stuff. But you can't be amazingly good all your life, I think there comes a time in your life when you've got to say to yourself, hey, let's go and do something really brainless.
Yeah, well, Paul, thanks a lot. That's Paul McGrath you're talking about not very much. And now we present Your Life in Their Hands. And we warn you that this programme contains detailed demonstration of a surgical operation.
And so, having sterilised the skin surface, Mr. Fermanagh makes the first incision. A semicircular cut about 4 inches. The blood oozes out. Bright red. That characteristic blood colour. Very red, oozing about all over the place. The doctor wipes it up. Not very successfully, I'm afraid. Such a bright colour. Difficult to get rid of at the best of times. Mr. Fermanagh now takes the other sharp metal object and makes a further cut. Of course, to realise now why the patient is anaesthetised. Nobody wants to wake up and see the guts all over a doctor's apron, do they? And now the doctor pulls back the skin to reveal some nasty gristly bits. Oh, dear. Oh, there's a bit of gunge. Oh, dear. Mr. Fermanagh has wiggled the gunge about with a metal spike. Oh, that's disgusting, that is. Oh, no. No. A bright pink bit of jelly has started splodging around. I'm glad I haven't got my hand sludging around in that muck. Oh, God, I heard it gurgle. Oh, God, how awful. Oh, the gunge has come out of its clamp again. Oh, it's wiggling around like nobody's business now. Oh, dear. It reminds me of that Chinese meal I had last night, and oh, dear. Oh, no, yes, I'm going to throw up.
We now go over to the Royal Albert Hall to hear the London Symphony Orchestra playing The Flight of the Bumblebee for full orchestra and man with swat.
Aha. Thank you.
And next week we'll be featuring the London Philharmonic Orchestra and Man with Air Rifle performing Saint-Saëns' Dying Swan.
This is the Odeon Theatre Chertsey with details of today's programmes. At Studios 1, 2, 3, 4 and all even numbers up to 140, we will be showing Kramer versus Kramer. This is an A certificate film with people in it. The programme starts at 6 p.m. We will first be showing that annoyingly long cigarette advert set in Zululand. Followed by the totally incomprehensible film featuring lizards and helicopters, which is pretty to look at, that has sweet FA to do with Benson and Hedges. Having whet your appetite for a fag, you will then start to light up. Just as we remind you that you are sitting in the cinema's no smoking sector. At 6:30, two OAPs will start talking very loudly behind you, whilst a man wearing a busby will take the seat in front of you. At this point, you are advised to visit the lavatory, because once the film starts, these will be locked. Remember, an hour from now, you'll wish you'd had one. Should you want to know when the film starts, please ring this entirely different number, 246-8021. The Odeon Theatre Chertsey would like to thank you for this 4-minute call on behalf of the Post Office. Come back soon.
Excuse me, what is Cointreau?
What is Cointreau? Literally a masterpiece that cannot be equaled. The bitter virtues, yes, of orange ripened on the tropical sun. Voila, that is Cointreau.
Very interesting. And what's liquid gumption?
My name is Jose Antonio de Quijada Romero. I was born and still live in the little village of San Rafael de Libertad, 300 miles south of Mexico City. My father, he was bandido. He abandoned my mother when I was only 2. We are poor people who work the land. It is a dry country. It has not rained here for 15 years. Why then, you may ask, am I proposing to stand as Tory MP for Hemel Hempstead?
And now on the Hollywood Greats, we present the Barry Normal story.
Composed, charming, soft-spoken, handsome, amiable. For many people, Barry Normal is a list of words. But he presented a very different side to those people who knew him well, those people who shared their lives with him, those people he interviewed. We spoke to 2 actors who worked with Barry on several interviews. First, Jack Mellon.
Yeah, I mean, the essence of Barry Normal was Barry himself. I mean, whenever I saw Barry Normal, I just said to myself, there goes Barry Normal.
And Charlton Athletic.
Barry was a puzzle, a mystery, an enigma.
Enigma.
Enigma. Yeah, that's right. He was a enigma. Niggling around all the time.
John Hosepipe, veteran Hollywood director, had this to say of Normal.
Well, Barry was a woman who...
Barry Normal.
I'm sorry?
Barry Normal.
Oh, Barry Normal? Never heard of him.
Barry's early interest in interviewing can be largely attributed to the influence of his mother, Ethel Normal. Charlton Athletic knew the Normals intimately.
All his family had a great influence on him. His brothers, mothers, fathers, southers, even his uncle and uncle. But it was definitely his mother who was the driving piano behind his career.
Barry's career took off in the early 70s. Film 71 was followed by the equally successful film 72 and 3. Normal then daringly experimented with films 74, 5 and 6. Then came a further change in direction with films 77, 8 and 9. And then the move which rocked the film world. Taking an extraordinary risk, Barry completely abandoned numbers beginning with 7 and made film 80. It paid off. Barry was a phenomenon, a megastar. But was he happy? We talked to Marilyn Mamory.
All Barry ever wanted to do was to settle down, have kids, clean the house, cook meals, that sort of thing. He was that sort of man. But the media were constantly harassing him. I mean, his love life was completely ruined by the press And I don't know what he was doing in that Chinese laundry anyway. Everyone said that Barry made his career by lying down on the floor in people's offices and opening his legs, but I know for a fact that he didn't do yoga.
And with the success, inevitably, came the pressure. Jack Mellon remembers.
Yeah, I mean, there was a whole drug scene at the time. You know, people were getting stoned out of their minds night after night just because they couldn't bear being interviewed by Barry. Barry was having to interview someone in order to sleep, interview someone to wake up. It was a vicious circle. One day, I remember he asked me to lend him $1,000, said he wanted to buy a car or something, and I believed him. But he vanished for days. I eventually found him in a subway lavatory with an old necktie around his arm. It was terrible. He was interviewing himself with a dirty microphone. I never did find out what the tie was for, but, you know.
One final word, then, to describe Barry Normal. Marilyn Mamory.
Sexy.
Jack Mellon.
Enigmatic.
Charlton Athletic.
Bookcase.
John Hosepipe.
Barry who? Now then, guys and gals, as it happens, guys and gals, goodness gracious me, now then, as it happens, guys and gals, I have here, as it happens, guys and gals, now then, hey, settle down now. As it happens, I have here a letter from someone called Mrs. Margaret Thatcher of Southwest One. How's about that then, guys and gals? Goodness gracious me, eh? And she says this, Dear Jim, as it happens, I am having trouble with the British economy. Can you fix it for me? As it happens, I took Maggie down to a deserted aerodrome where we were joined by Brigadier Armstrong Stewart, who very kindly, now then, brought a couple of tanks along with him. And how's about this thing, guys and girls? Goodness gracious me, now then. Coming up on your television screens now then is a picture of me and Maggie. There we are, and the Brigadier, and there's me with the tank fixing the British economy. How's about that then, guys and gals? Oh!
Hey, Dob. How you doing, mate?
Really great, really great.
What you been doing lately?
Well, last year I went east to find myself.
Any luck?
No, when I got there, I'd gone. How's Anthea?
We split up.
Hey, that's bad.
Yeah,
That's
well,
real bad.
I came home one day earlier than normal because my joint had gone out, and I found her in bed with no clothes on, and
Oh, don't
I
tell me.
don't really want to talk about it, you know.
Another man?
No, she just had a bath.
Oh, that's terrible.
What about you and Kim?
Well, we've been away for the last 4 weeks on an acid trip.
Oh, yeah? Anywhere nice?
Well, you know, Lake District, Brittany, Neptune, the Middle Ages, heaven,
Yeah,
those
yeah.
sort of places. Oh, look, here comes Ruth and Dave. Hi,
Hi.
Ruth. Hi, Dave.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Ruth.
Hi, Hey, Dave. How you doing, Dave? Here, what's wrong with Dave?
Lay off him. He's only 2 months old.
Yeah, he's talking nonsense.
Of course he is, man. He's stoned.
Oh, great.
Right.
God, have you heard the terrible news about Zoe?
Who's Zoe?
You know, the girl who ran the whole food restaurant. She's died.
Oh, what a drag. That's a drag. That is a drag.
She's been on this all-carrot diet for the past 2 years, and
Yeah.
6 months ago she started turning orange, right?
God.
And last week her hair turned green, and yesterday she was eaten by a giant rabbit.
Hey, I really love carrots. They're very good for your eyes.
Yeah, but I can never get them to stay in, you know, man.
Listen, I had this terrible experience this morning. I was in Tesco's
Yeah,
doing
go
the
on.
week shoplifting.
Yeah.
And this 30-year-old sexist started mentally undressing me. And it was just disgusting. You know, it took me half an hour to get my knickers back on. How's Anthea, anyway?
She's all right now. The doctor's told her to watch what she eats, so she's had a window put in her stomach.
Yeah.
You know, yes.
Look out, man, look out. Here comes Eddie Grapefruit.
Look
Eddie
out, look out, look out, look out, look out, look out, look out.
Hey, you guys, I think it's time to launch our counter-attack on the fascist dogs who murdered Blair Peach.
Right.
Fancy killing someone just as he's named after a fruit.
Cool, that man. Keep cool.
Yeah, it's all right for you, isn't it? I mean, your name isn't Eddie Grapefruit.
Right. Hey,
Hey, who's having this line?
It's my line.
It's mine.
Hey.
I'm top.
I want to be done.
I backseat that part this
Did you?
morning. Hey,
Have you heard the sad news about Dirty Lenny? You know, the filthy old tramp who used to live in a dustbin. You want to look like a pile of soil in a pack-a-mac?
Oh, yeah?
Well, he got picked up by the pigs.
Go on.
I will. And taken to the station, and you know what they did?
No.
They went and washed him. They left him in the shower for an hour and a half, scraped the dirt off him, and shaved him. And you know what? He didn't exist. He was an earthworm.
Amazing.
For those of you who have just joined us, the solemn procession is making its way out of the Abbey and into the streets, packed with crowds of mourners, some of whom have stayed up all night in the pouring rain to pay their last respects to someone very special. In the midst of life, we are in death, said the Archbishop in his moving sermon, and how true. He spoke for us all when he said that children all over the world will never forget the joy he brought into millions of homes, his sense of humanity, his endearing modesty, and most of all, perhaps, his shiny black nose. Yes, indeed, it will be a long, long time before the world sees another Sooty, OBE. For the past 3 days, Sooty's orange body has been lying in state at his Surrey home. It is ironic that such a magnificent showman should have met his end in the way he did, appearing on the popular children's TV program Go with Noakes. He was stroking Shep in his usual friendly fashion when suddenly, in a rabid moment, frothing at the mouth, John Noakes bit his tiny head clean off. Among the mourners here today numbers our own Queen, the Duke of Edinburgh. And Prince Charles, of course, who never missed a Sooty program. And now I hand you back. But before I do, there stands Harry Corbett, Sooty's constant companion. No doubt, thinking of happier days, I see he wipes away a solitary tear with the stump of his right hand. You've been listening to Injury Time, starring Robert Bathurst, Martin Bergman, Rory McGrath, Jimmy Mulville, and Emma Thompson. Written by Rory McGrath, Martin Bergman, and Jimmy Mulville, with additional material from Owen Brenman and Chris Keatley. The program is produced by Geoffrey Perkins. If you have enjoyed Injury Time, you may well be interested to know that as well as being available in LP form, the program is also available in frying pan form. You can listen to your favorite sketches and sautéed chunks of beef at the same time. It is the first non-stick program produced by Radio 4 since the celebrated Teflon-coated Brain of Britain. If you wish to purchase your Injury Time frying pan, write to the producer, Geoffrey Perkins, at his home address, please, not at the BBC. They're not supposed to know about this. It's a little business venture that Geoffrey's got going, all above board, you realise, nothing shady. Not like his underground betting shop. Incidentally, if you want to make a bet, the Derby, FA Cup, who shot JR, who'll be Prime Minister after Brian?